Lesson 2 -03, how to create a technical drawing. So we're going to pick up with the same module that we had in the previous tutorial, which was this simple cube with a little slot, a 20 millimeter by 50 millimeter slot on one face, which I already have open on Fusion. If you don't already have it open, go ahead and open it. All right. To create a technical drawing, we're just going to do File, New Drawing, and From Design. From Design just means that whatever design is physically up right now, it'll be using that to create the drawing. So because we have Simple Cube up, we're going to click File, New Drawing, From Design. Okay, and then this little tab shows up for creating the drawing. You can do full assembly, the only components that are visible, or you can select specific components within the file. We're going to click full assembly simply because there's only one part in the assembly. If you were, say, making a drawing of like a full engine with a ton of different components, maybe you'd choose just a few components or all of them, depending on what you're trying to highlight in the drawing. The rest of this, we want our units to be in millimeters, standard is ISO, template from scratch. We'll talk about templates later. You can actually make drawing templates beforehand so that it'll auto-populate something with drawing standards already on it, maybe your name or your business name, so on and so forth. So we'll talk about that later. Cool. Let me click OK. And all right, we are in our drawing. You can see we can go back to our simple cube if we wanted to. Oh, it's still loading. We can go back to the simple cube, or we can toggle to and from between drawing and cube. All right. So to place a view, it actually it automatically had the part selected for me, but because I exited out of it, I'm gonna have to go up here and click base view. And this is the front of our part. Okay, so the XZ plane, which we considered the front, that's what we're looking at here. And I'm gonna click to place the view on the page. Wow, it's really slow right now. Maybe it'll speed up here in a sec. This is like too slow. Okay, no, that'll work. Scale, you can come in here and make it say like 2:1, and that's gonna make it huge. Let's go back to half scale, or maybe we make it 2/3. Let's go 2/3 to make it just a little bit bigger. You can change the style. So this is, excuse me, realistic. Shaded is going to look just like the part does in your part file or your Fusion file. This is just like a wireframe, and I'll show you kind of what the difference between those is in just a sec. So the dotted lines represent features that are not physically visible, but are within your part. And so we're seeing the pocket from the front side, even though the pocket's on the back. And that's why that's a dotted line. So if I were to click on this and go to the back side, okay, orientation, back side, all of a sudden it's flipped around 180, and those dotted lines are now solid because That's a feature that we could physically see from the backside. Let's go back to the front. Actually, no, you know what? We're going to keep it on the back because we want to be able to highlight that feature. Okay. All right. From there, we want a few other projection views, and I'll talk about that in a sec. But let's just go like that. We really only need, we don't need this view, but I'll do it just for completeness. All right. Okay. And actually, I'm going to do one more view, an isometric view. All right. I think I'm way ahead. I've gone rogue compared to the tutorial. Let's see what they have us doing. Okay. Chatted about this. Click in the sheet's upper left corner to place the base view. Okay, we did that. That's our base view. They're looking at a different side of this thing than we are for our base view. That's okay. If we wanted to, we could change it. But why don't I do something different than the tutorial, just so that you have two examples of what's possible for this drawing. In the drawing view control, select visible edge option in the style selection. Okay, so they want us to do that. Let's try that. Let's see what that looks like. Well, that's going to stay the same, but then you can see that the hidden edges have gone away. I don't like that. We want to be able to see the pocket and the pocket depth. Otherwise, somebody looking at this is not going to know how deep to make this cut. Say it's being made out of metal on a CNC machine. They're not going to know how deep to make this pocket here. So we want to highlight how deep that pocket goes. Base view can be moved around the sheet. Yeah, we kind of showed that. Notice that the side views, or the projected views, they follow in line with the base view. You can actually, I believe it's a right click. Well, I'd have to go in and find where, but you can't, or maybe it's a double click. Somewhere you can disassociate the projected view from the base view in case you wanted to move it somewhere else on the page so that it wasn't in line. You might do that to like fit more on the drawing. In this case, we're just going to leave it as it is. And I'll come back to later on how to disassociate one view from another. I got to look it up. Okay. Projected view, we've done that. Okay, done that. That's great. Okay, now we're on dimensioning this. So we want to give whoever's making, the drawing is like a blueprint or a recipe, if you will, for making this part. And if you're sending this out to a manufacturer, you want them to be able to look at the drawing and know exactly what you intend to have as a final product. So to do that, you have to dimension literally everything so that it's fully constrained. So to do that with this part, let's just go ahead and start. We've got a width to this thing, a height to this thing, and if we, this view here is rotating it, so this is the, oh, you highlighted the wrong thing. I'm using dimension up here, and I believe you can just click D. So I exited that function. You can just click D, and dimension is highlighted. Okay, and we've got our depth. Now notice this is interesting and worth noting. This is 54, but we made this depth 55. Okay, so what it's done is it's selected just inside the radius, the 1 millimeter radius. And so we don't want to highlight that this is 54 because that's actually wrong. So I had misselected the edge instead. So if we were just click this edge and say 54, we want to give the full depth of the part, which is 55. And the way to do that is you hit the back of it and the front of it, or I guess I had that backwards, but back and front, 55. As far as the radius goes, I believe we should be able to just hit the radius. There it is, R1. Okay. And that shows that. Okay, we're nearly there. So we've got height, width, depth. That's all good. I'm moving around my page like this by just clicking the scroll button, FYI. Now we want to dimension the slot, okay, and give them a good understanding of where it's located and its dimensions. So we'll go back to dimension. We will reference it off of the top edge and the side edge, like so. And then of course we've got the slot. I don't know why I keep picking corners. We got the slot width, slot length. Okay. So now we've defined the, well, we have one more thing to dimension on the slot, and that's its depth. So we've defined the depth, we've just defined length and width, and we've defined its location within the part with respect to two edges. So that slot is fully defined for anybody who wants to go and make this part. One thing that's important to note here is this radius, it travels all the way around the perimeter, and we want to make that very clear. It's kind of clear up here in our isometric view of the part, and I like to put this isometric view with coloring just so that the person making it, if it's not you, has kind of just a general idea of what it should look like. It's kind of a sanity check. So I always put that in the top of my drawings. It can be smaller if it's taking up too much space, but it's just a kind of a pictorial for them. Oh, that's not smaller. We can go 2:1. Oh my gosh. Meant 1:2. There we go. Up in the corner. All right. Where was I? Radius. So it's all the way around the perimeter, and we want to make that clear because we've only highlighted it on one edge here, even though it goes all the way around. So you can go like this. You can double click on your dimension, and you should be able to take your cursor, move it outside the little brackets, and type whatever you want in addition to it. So you could say ×4 for 4 edges, and they might understand what you mean by that. Or you can say, excuse me, I'm gonna double click, in parentheses, around, gosh, I can't see that now. Okay. In drafting, the standard is to write in all capital letters. The one place that I would say is the exception is if you're writing, inches or millimeters, then it can be lowercase because those are usually that's usually how they're denoted. Okay, so we are fully dimensioned. We have height, width, depth of both the part and the singular feature. We've called out the radius on the back edge of this, all the way around the perimeter. So if someone's looking at this, they know everything that they need to know to replicate it. Let's see kind of what our tutorial had us do. Okay, so they had you use a leader text to call out the corner. All right. I instead had you just use the dimension tool. The text leader is leader note right there. So you can click on that and highlight something, and from there you can type whatever, whatever note you want to make, note. And that's that. Click OK. So you can use that as well. That you can also denote the radius that way. I went ahead and used the dimension tool because it makes that note automatically for you. All right, and save the file. So that's pretty much it on drawings. The main takeaway, well, there's the template here as well. We'll talk about templates later. This would be a space where you put general tolerances. Obviously, you have your name, the designer, the date, the title of the drawing. There's a drawing number if you're making like a part that needs to be, you need to follow like the revisions. Anyway, we'll talk about that more in depth later. So we're going to save it as simple cube drawing into the same space, which for me was Intro to 3D Modeling. And I believe that's that.